Hello, everyone. Hello to people watching at home, but also hello to people in the room. It's been a plague since people were in the room with us last. So it's really nice to have people in the room again with us. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us at home. This is Music Talk from McNally Robinson. We are here in the best bookstore on the prairies. I'm Mark, as you probably know, and this is our guest tonight, Judith Yan. Judith, welcome back to Saskatoon.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, this is now you were not actually supposed to be here this week.
No.
We had another conductor who was on opening night and had been booked for like a year and a half, who then this spring ended up with a travel issue in June. Like, it wasn't all that long ago. July? It wasn't. It was just like, and I messaged you. See, this is what happens when you become friends.
Yes.
It's a
Yes,
problem, because
know.
then I'll just go to you for favors.
Favor was happy.
Yeah,
to
that's
it.
good, because this is a challenging
Yes.
thing. You know, often when you have conductors who have to step in last minute, the repertoire they know, and no one knows this repertoire
No.
because none of this has ever been done in Canada before. Well, one of it's a world premiere, so no one's ever done it. The other two pieces haven't been ever done in Canada. And has only been played. One of the symphony's only been played once in North America before.
Yes.
The
in
Seattle Symphony, yeah.
Yep.
So there was no one to call to say, you already know the Gibbs, come on down. It was literally an opportunity to just actually throw you into the waters.
Yes, I did say to the orchestra, I said, well, I guess I'm your substitute teacher.
That's good. I like that. That's good.
true.
Yeah, exactly. If you have any questions here in the audience, save that to the end. If you have questions online, you can actually type in the YouTube chat, and through the magic of technology, it gets beamed to my armrest. So let's dive right in. This
Okay.
weekend, it's our opening night of our 92nd season. We're thrilled to have you, because not only did you graciously step in and learn music that you were never ever going to learn, you also are one of our artistic partners this year. You're here multiple times over the season.
Yes.
And you're helping out with a lot of stuff behind the scenes as well, with like some of our audition stuff. And so it's
Yes.
great to have you back. The musicians love working with you. The audience loved your Swan Lake. Everyone's still talking about that.
Well, that's nice.
We open this weekend's concert with a world premiere
Yes.
with Christos Hatsis. What is it like learning music that no one's ever heard?
It's actually a huge opportunity, a huge privilege, really, particularly the subject matter, the way this piece came about, you know, how you make this beautiful commission and why. And it's always exciting. You know those questionnaires, like, who would you like to have dinner with? You know, if you could have dinner with anyone in the world, people would like Cleopatra or, you know, whatever, right? Caesar. I always want to have dinner with the composer of which work, whose work I have to perform.
Right.
And in a way, this is like, it's fantastic, a dream come true. So Christos and I was actually on Zoom for about 2 hours. We went through like each measure of this work, and we talked. Like, it was really, really very lovely. So that's how I think.
It was really cool. So this piece is in memory of Randy Nelson, who was the longtime principal flautist for the Saskatoon Symphony Orchestra. She occupied that position for 48 seasons, which I think is unheard of in Canadian orchestral history. And so when she passed, you know, we named her the seat after her. The seat is from now on the Randy Nelson principal flute position. And so this was the next step of honoring her. And we'd worked with her husband and talked to him about we wanted to do a commission for her. Reached out to Christos. Actually, the very last piece that Randy ever played with the SSO was his piece Lamento, and she loved it. And so that was such a nice fit. And then you know, I reached out to Christos, as you do with composers, and you say, we want to book you for commission, and they go, yep, that's great. You know, I'm really busy right now, so it'll be a few years. And I was like, nope, that's fine. He figured about 2 years. And he said, you know, tell me more about Randy. And so we did. I talked to him about not only her incredible leadership in the orchestra, but her leadership in our music community and how she had taught so many students and her gardening. And I talked to her about her husband telling me at a little gathering he had in the backyard after Randy passed. And he talked about this wonderful story about he was moving from Victoria to Saskatoon. He'd been here for a year already. They met, fell in love, got engaged, and he was driving back to Saskatoon, and he drove up to Randy's house, and she stood up, and she was up to her waist in lupins. Oh. And so I said to Christos, I think that has to be the name of the piece because it references Randy's gardening, and she always had lupins. And Christos reached out to Terry, Randy's husband, and in 3 days, Christos called me and said, "Yeah, it's done." and it was one of those moments of, okay, I guess we're doing it next season, aren't we? And it's so unusual. It's the fastest he's ever written a piece of music. It's a little over 10 minutes. It's this phenomenal concerto for flute, a waltz, if you will, in a way. There's kind of a dance feel to it. What tell us about the music?
Well, I was asking him, and just is there a narrative? And he says, no, my music doesn't really have narratives. But then he started describing like different sections of the music. And he started to describe like how the piece starts, which is just a flute solo. And I don't think I mean, it was so intimate, the reason how that came about. I don't know if I can share it. I think that's something that I mean in a very beautiful way, because when he told me, like I got like a little bit like choked up of why he chose, like I think the first like four measures of just only the flute playing. And so it was, and then right after that there's he says that I want to have this entire section after that has to do with the golden means, like the perfect interval, which is in between a minor six and a major six. And he says, well, I can't ask the musicians to tune their instruments in such a way. So he placed the major six and the minor six on top of each other. And he instructed him. He says, look, the dynamics, like you have to go louder and softer. They're hairpin, dynamics, but you have to ask the musicians to delay so that the effect is there. So we talked a lot about that, and he says that at the end of this cluster of gorgeous sound, well, I said gorgeous. He's lovely and very modest.
Very humble,
yeah. That it should be this absolute blinding white light, and the week before, I think Alice and I, the soloist, and I were talking about, like, she says, well, how long should I wait between this section? Do I just go? I said, well, I don't know. And so now that after talking to Christos, I said, should she go ahead and come in at these different sections? She goes, no. She just appears. She appears when she wants to. So it's, and then you have to wait for the lights to dissipate. And I mean, I think I have to share what he told me. Can I share? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So this is so beautiful. I said, like, what? How, can you explain? He goes, well, it was a very personal moment. And I said to Terry, there's going to be a moment, perhaps it's in the evening, where you're just going to close your eyes and she's just going to come to you in a form of her playing. And that's why the piece starts the way it does. And all the way through, she appears.
And kind of drifts in.
Yes.
I mean, Christos, there are a lot of very famous Canadian composers. Christos is amongst the upper echelon in Canadian music, because his music is played a lot around the globe. His work, The Isle is Full of Noises, is one of the most performed modern orchestral tone poems. And so it was such an honor for him to take this on. His music is enigmatic.
Yes.
In the best possible way, because there isn't a narrative, and yet there is.
Right, exactly.
And you can't always put your finger on what you're enjoying.
Yes.
Because it's not clear. It's not direct.
No.
it you know, and you were talking today with me about the difficulty in the string writing and the fact that, you know, the audience actually doesn't get to understand, you know, in Tchaikovsky or in Rachmaninoff, you can hear the difficult string writing and you're like, oh, that's it. Yeah, that's the hard part. In this, you won't be able to tell what the hard part is.
Exactly. And a lot of it has to do with the way he uses rhythm and time. So he manipulates the time, the concept of time. And so you have different sections that are in almost like different universes, right? Of pulses. And so so what he said also, that what the audience hears is not what we see. And he says, and then this is the best. At one point, the waltz that you're talking about is so lovely. It starts, you know, with a cello solo, which of course Terry
Sturgeon, Randy's husband, is a cellist. So.
Yeah, and so this, I said, of all the instruments for you to bring in middle of nowhere, why the tuba? See, I love the tuba. I love brass instruments, and why the tuba? And so he started talking and goes, you know, I'm really quite interested in the social structure of brass instruments as opposed to different kinds of instruments, and
because brass players are social.
Yeah,
with each other, they are a band, a thick as thieves. A band of brothers back there, and sisters. But that's just brass players in every orchestra.
I know. You know, when the music stand goes up, you know something's going on, right? Yeah, yeah. So he says that when his pieces are being performed, the tuba player always comes up to him afterwards and gives him a knowing look, says, yeah, I know. Right.
Yeah, he writes brilliantly for instruments that sort of often get forgotten.
Yes.
And are I'll add a note there because the orchestra told me that they have a tuba. Which is what a lot of, you know, that's one of those instruments that unfortunately gets left to the last moments to have something added. So,
which is too bad, because there's something so incredible about the timbre of the tuba that makes it so special. And so the tuba features in the waltz section, and it comes in, and I think I was thinking it as he was saying it. He says, you know, like in New Orleans, you know, when people pass away and you have a procession down the street, and the way he writes the waltz, he says that, and then all of a sudden the texture and the string writing, it gets more, you know, more passionate and more fiery. And he says, when you get to the end of this page, it should sound like this release, it again, like a deafening sound, like a release of grief. So it goes from this waltz between Randy and Terry to this procession. So
and it's really thrilling because, you know, we've performed a lot of Christos's music over the years here at the SSO, particularly in these last 8 years, and he's coming this weekend. He'll be here with us in Saskatoon this weekend. He is doing a talk at the University in Quantz Theatre Friday afternoon at 12:30, open to the public, and then he'll also be with Brian Unvericht in the lobby ahead of the concert for the pre-concert chat. And so I can't wait to have him up on stage. To share that moment, because it's going to be incredibly emotional for the musicians on stage, many of whom spent their entire careers with Randy as not only their go-to flute, but she was sort of like the mom of the orchestra.
Right.
So it'll be a very emotional moment. And to have Alison Miller as our soloist, currently occupying the principal position, and also from Saskatoon originally, it's a really wonderful moment. We get to continue, but with a very different sound.
Yes.
In the concerto. So Ryan Davis is another one of our artistic partners this year. We have a number of artistic partners, both on the podium and as soloists, that are helping kind of create an arc throughout the season. So Judith is one of them. You're here 3 times this year. And Ryan is here twice. Actually, you get to work with him again in the spring. Yeah, it's just the two of you just keep doing stuff together. Ryan Davis is a remarkable violist who grew up here in Saskatoon, who is such an incredible young talent. On top of being a brilliant soloist and chamber musician, he also has this indie project called Radia. And I remember talking to Ryan and saying, we want you to be, you know, one of our artist partners next year. And I was in Toronto and I took him out for lunch and I said to him, well, you know, what concerto do you want to do? And he's like, I get to pick. I was like, of course, it's your show. Like, what? Pick what you want. And he said, well, I want to do the Malcolm Forsyth Concerto, but nobody ever does it. And I went, okay, we'll do the Malcolm Forsyth Concerto, because I trusted him, and I'm glad I did, because it's spectacular.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You have been referencing, and I completely agree, it's movie music without a screen.
Yes. Like so when Mark contacted me and said, well, what are you doing in September? I said, prepping my season. And then Mark gave me the repertoire list. So I'm, okay, knew the world premiere, the score wasn't there yet. And then the Forsyth. So I'm listening to this, and I text Mark and I said, it sounds kind of like Pirates, not Penzance, but of the Caribbean. And I got like radio silence like from Mark, and I thought, oh gosh, I'm fired before I even had the first rehearsal. But I think the problem was that I was listening to a particular recording that really did sound, but it has that element.
It really
right?
does. Yeah, particularly the third movement.
Oh my gosh, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's that cinematic movie magic excitement.
It is absolutely exciting, and even more exciting that to work with Ryan, because we had a few conversations since then. We talked through the entire score, and he said, "Look, there's a recording that I absolutely adore. That is not the recording that anybody can. It's not readily available." He says, "Do you mind if I send it to you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to see it or hear it." So he sent it to me, and immediately it didn't sound as Pirates of the Caribbean as much.
That's a choice.
Okay, I mean, there's nothing wrong.
I'm happy with Pirates. So
oh yeah,
it's very swashbuckly.
Well, yeah, I love movie music.
As I often describe viola concertos as swashbuckly.
Yeah, it is today. Yeah. Well, the middle movement is so beautiful, and he said the reason why he loved this concerto so much was because of the middle movement. It is strings and underneath, supporting this most incredible melody that goes on, and you don't know where it's going, but it all just sounds right? It's unexpected. Which actually, there's a lot of interesting commonality between the Forsyth and the Ruth Gibbs, both English composers, separated by about 40 years, I think, of creation. And there is,
Well, and Forsyth, it's interesting. So we called this concert Orchestration, Sense of Adventure. The sense of adventure, because, no one's ever heard this music before. It is diving into brand new territory. But also that orchestration, Malcolm Forsyth, if you classical music diehards have no idea who this man was, except for the fact that he wrote the book on orchestration, literally. And the book is actually called Orchestration. And he was considered to be one of the great orchestrators of all time. He helped Vaughan Williams orchestrate some of his symphonies. He helped some of the big British, that early 20th century British sound. He created that. With the way the academia he took to orchestration. He wrote a handful of pieces, of which really only the viola concerto gets performed, and it's beautiful. It's that early 20th century British sound, but not like it is so much more cinematic. It's got hints of Korngold and that thrill of orchestra in full flight.
Yeah, and particularly, I think I love the recording that Ryan sent to me. It was so stunning. So all of a sudden you hear like what the possibilities of this concerto was, and I had a short period of time to assimilate the information, so I was taking any kind of opportunity, anything, just to learn it. And then Ryan and I were talking on the via Zoom, I think last week before coming, just to find out, how would you like this? What do you think? And there were two places in this concerto I thought, well, do you really, it's kind of. And those were the exact same two places that he said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. You know how like in sometimes in music you have like a repeat of a phrase and then they just kind of like drop the volume. It's
tacky.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the boss says
it's
so, I can say.
musical. It's musical cheese.
It is so cliche
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that sort of call and
Yeah.
response
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
I mean, it was written for the BBC proms back when
But-
they were just the proms. So
but the funny thing was, in the score, it doesn't exist. Only the horn has a little bit a little bit quieter. And the recording that Ryan gave me, that he loves, there's no none of this dropping down of dynamics. So, because I said, "Oh, thank goodness," and then he says to me, he goes, "As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go bigger." And I said, "I think I love you. This is great." And what was the other part? He said, "There's another part where, in concertos, it's like, oh yeah, okay, let's warn the audience that, like a lot of times in music, let's warn them that they're gonna have to applaud soon. So okay, now we're gonna make it a little bit faster, make it more exciting." So he says, "Yeah, I'm gonna ramp up, the drama, but I'm gonna do it by going slower first, so that I said, I get you. So you have further to go, right? You can go like faster if you slow down." So yeah, I can't wait to work with him.
yeah, he's a phenomenal player. It's such a thrill. I mean, he grew up playing in the youth orchestra, has played on stage with the SSO in the section. Jim Legg, who's our principal violist, it was Ryan's teacher. So this is a wonderful opportunity to showcase him in repertoire that not only does he love, but it does deserve to be heard more. It's a phenomenal piece of music.
Yes.
It's amongst the most exciting concertos I think I've ever heard.
Oh my gosh.
Thrilling.
Yeah, I think, and the viola is such a beautiful string instrument. My gosh, it's like so. Ryan, took out his instrument, was playing for me over Zoom, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's a fine
Yeah,
player.
he really is a phenomenal player. So we get to continue our adventure in this concert with the Second Symphony of one of the most significant composers of the 20th century, who was blacklisted because she was a woman.
Yeah.
So Ruth Gibbs is one of the most prolific British composers of all time. And she was born in 1921. Last year was her 100th anniversary. We actually, you were here when we gave a performance of her seascapes last year on your Atlantic cruise, transatlantic
that's
cruise,
right.
in our two, I guess that was 2 years ago now. It was such an incredible experience because her music is spectacular. Ruth was not only a composer who had her first piece premiered, one of her pieces premiered at the proms when she was 19, and that sort of started her stardom. She was a gifted pianist who performed a number of premieres of famous British piano concertos, including Arthur Bliss's, which is still played today. She was a gifted oboist who also gave premieres of oboe concertos. And famously, in one night, she performed the piano solo in the Arthur Bliss Piano Concerto in the first half of the concert, and in the second half of the concert, she played the English horn in the premiere of her Third Symphony.
Yeah.
No slouch.
Yeah.
She also went on to found the 3 orchestras. She was the director of the City of Birmingham Philharmonic Chorus. She was passed over for the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra because she was a woman, and they felt that wouldn't be proper. And because Ruth lived in the time she did, her husband was a famous clarinetist as well. Because she lived in the time she did, she had incredible prejudices against her by her colleagues, and she developed a very hard attitude to keep herself able to work in that very unfertile environment. But in spite of all of that, she wrote so much. There are 5 symphonies, all of them spectacular. This one is in one movement. There's no place to stop. There's no energy.
No.
It has some of the most gorgeous brass writing I've ever heard.
Yes.
You can tell she understood how to write that British brass sound. And it too is sort of like a movie without a picture.
Yes. Yes. She wrote it in 1945, and often with any kind
She was
of
24.
was she? Oh my goodness! Oh, wow. Oh boy.
And it makes us feel lazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes, we're slackers. Yeah, you and I. When you're performing works, and no matter how many times you still look at historically, like why did the person write it? Who were they with? Was there something historically what was going on? And particularly with a piece that it's a Canadian premiere and it's not a known piece here, you want to take a look at that. But I don't know what it was. I think, again, it was because it was a short time period, right? So I grabbed the list that Mark gave me and immediately, tried to listen and get a score. And it was so clear that she was really quite affected by what was happening in England, just leading up to that, during the war. And you could hear so clearly all the sections. It starts off very idyllic, like the beautiful countryside or oceans, and then at midway through, you can hear like a military band, but just snare, like 3 instruments, snare drums and 2 piccolos, and I think a bass drum, and it sounds like they're from far away. So you could think, is it a country fair? What could it be? But then the instruments, they layer and layer on top of each other, and you realize that actually it's a representation of war, and it gets more and more complex. And the great thing that we were talking about yesterday in rehearsal was that her music is not sort of like this 4-bar phrases, right? Like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, or whatever. I'm just choosing,
almost all music.
Yeah, I just right. But her music, you could read it that way, but you don't want to. The lines, they just keep going. Like, to me, her music is kind of it's like inspired speech. It just keeps going and going, because nobody talks in rhyming couplets, not that I know of, anyway.
Not sober.
No, because then you'd be in limericks or something, or anyway. So it's incredible. So I know that listening to a few of the recordings, it's rather polite. That whole military section. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they think, oh well, let's not make it violent. But I said to Mark, I said, do you mind if we make it violent? Because it is the war. And right after that military section is this crashingly loud. It drops into this incredible slow string section that is so full of grief and loss. And then as you progress beyond that, you could hear this part where it sounds like the country is coming back to life, right? And you can hear this one part that sounds like people are running towards each other, and you can't help but think, the war's over, the people are coming back, they're seeing each other, the trains have arrived, it is so incredible. And there is actually a clarinet solo that is there, and I wonder if it represented her husband.
Yeah, because they had met at that time.
Yeah. And it wasn't until later when I did the research and I realized, oh my gosh, her husband was enlisted and he left and he came back, and there was this lovely, phenomenal, I'm sure, reunion. But the amazing thing about this piece is that the theme, that the original theme is at the beginning, and of course at the beginning and at the end, but it sounds very different. And with the ending, it sounds so modern. And I was saying to my partner, I said, my gosh, it sounds like, because my partner always says, oh, I remember London when, last time we went to London, she was like, where did all these big glass buildings come from? Like the thing, the pineapple, the eye, and it really does sound like the last maybe 2-3 minutes sounds like I can see like buildings like surging, from the ground, and actually I asked my my partner's parents who are British and in England and Scotland at the time during the war. I said, what did it sound like? What was it like during, and she said, oh yeah, it sounded like that. Yeah, we heard the sirens and we would disappear and hide.
It is a phenomenal piece, and
Yes.
and Ruth did write it as that end of the war transition phase.
Right.
The thing that I find it was an adventure. To get this music.
Yes.
The conductor who was originally on this program
Yeah.
had this she wanted to do this piece, and I was thrilled because I love Ruth's music.
Yeah.
The orchestra has really enjoyed it, so this is perfect. Finding the music was not a simple task. Thankfully, the Gibbs family allowed us permission to take this work on loan from the musical library of Philadelphia.
Yes.
Yes, and we had to sort of we had to get dispensation from the family to do it, and it's been quite an adventure that has been entirely worth it. And I do hope that this is kind of the first of many Ruth Gibbs experiences here, because
Yes.
her music is just incredible. And now that it's sort of being rediscovered, she died in 1999, and now that finally her music is sort of being played properly and given its proper time on stage, quite literally. There are people coming out saying this is one of the great symphonies of the 20th century.
Yes.
Why don't we all know it?
It's true. Like,
And she was literally silenced. And, that's a bit of a theme for us. This fall, later in October, we're doing this concert called Mujer, which is the Spanish word for woman. And it features, I think at least 2 Canadian premieres and a world premiere, a piece by Evelyn Ramon called Rebellion, which is about the the revolution in Cuba. And we're doing Mariana Martinez's Dixit Dominus. And of course, Mariana Martinez, her duet partner was Mozart. Her accompanist was Haydn. She was seen as this towering figure in classical Vienna. And then her history was silenced because she was a woman. And so our performance of the Dixit Dominus is the North American premiere.
oh my gosh. Wow.
Just 250 years later. So I'm so grateful that orchestras are able to bring this music back to life and give it the proper
Yes.
voice it deserves.
Yeah. I read an article actually where some music journalist was describing the Ruth Gibbs Symphony No. 2, and apparently I think it's his young daughter made some comment like, "Oh, finally, a work that I really enjoy listening to." So children don't lie, or
It's very true.
Not,
Not about symphonies.
not about symphonies. Other things maybe, but
Here's hoping. Children don't lie about symphonies. Are there any questions in the room tonight? I know we've got one from online. If you could speak to the other composers in this program in the same way that you got to speak to Christos, what would you want to ask? What would you want to ask Ruth Gibbs?
what would I want to ask? That's a very good question. The last 3 measures. Yes. So I spoke with the orchestra last night, so we have to strategize exactly how we can do the last 3 measures. They're very important. And yes. So I would ask her that what we've come up with, is that what she had in mind? And there was also this one place that we think is she's written it, it's measured, but we think it's a tremolo. There was 2 wrong notes in the copied parts. Just saying. I know.
I'll call Philadelphia.
I know. What is with that, right? It's just, and I think that is the one score.
It's the one score, I think, in North America.
In North America.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
I said to Matthew, your wonderful librarian, I said, how can we get hold of the score? And he's like, okay, I'm gonna look. He goes, okay, I've talked to people in Philadelphia. I've begged them to send that one score early. It's coming. And the whole time I was freaking out.
And it came, didn't it?
It did. because if it didn't come, I mean, I would be making it up right now, really.
Yeah, I mean,
literally.
because getting it on loan from the library had a timeline to it, and it was going to take them a long time to process the shipment, et cetera, et cetera. So it was an adventure.
Yes.
Everything about this concert has been an adventure.
Yes. Yeah.
So
there's a B natural I would like to ask her about, but I'm sure that she would not have meant for it to be a B natural. It should really be a B flat, but it's just that her copyists, I'm just saying, I think it might be
we need to. I'll call someone.
Yeah.
I'll find someone in England who might actually have the original.
Yeah. Actually, I would have a question. Is she the English horn, or is she the oboe, or is she any of that? Like, because there are these really beautiful lines in there, and who is the cello? There's a beautiful cello solo. So who else is a personality in this particular symphony?
Potentially Arthur Bliss.
Could be.
Because he was a cellist and she worked with him a great deal. She conducted the premiere of his cello concerto.
gosh.
Yeah. As you're saying that would make good sense. They were close friends.
This is amazing. It's
Yeah.
like you have a
and
direct
he
line.
was a survivor of the war. Of the first war. He was a veteran of the first war.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Yeah.
The plot thickens.
Yeah, there you
Any other questions?
The orchestra must be so excited for all the music they get to play this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of so the comment is that the orchestra is very excited about the music they get to play this year. It really is. It's an exciting and kind of thrilling year. It's this is an adventurous year. There's no Mozart, there's no Beethoven, there's no Brahms, and there's no Haydn. And my colleagues across the country think that this might be the first time a Canadian orchestra has ever gone without the German canon. We don't have anything from the German canon. Mariana Martinez, I guess, is as close as we get. You're back. The next time we're here at McNally, you're back. Because we're doing Bolero and other incredible Spanish things, including a North American premiere.
Yes.
Yeah, of a new piece, and Scheherazade later in the season, Firebird. We're doing the orchestral premiere of Eric Eschenwald's Nordic Light Symphony. It's such an exciting, and that symphony actually not only has the choir and the orchestra, but it actually has a multimedia portion to it. So the orchestra has above it the Northern Lights shot from around the Arctic Circle. So it's a very exciting season. It is a lot of a kind of musical adventure, musical departure, and it's thrilling to be able to do this for our audience and for the online audience as well. It's been great to see how that continues. Last season we had viewers in 47 countries online. And to be able to see how we can share that music with the world is pretty cool here in Saskatoon. So, Judith, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great week with the orchestra.
I will.
It will be such a thrill to hear these three pieces, and to have Christos with us,
Yes.
and to celebrate Randy, and to celebrate getting back to even closer to normal than last year was.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. Have a great night.
Okay. Thank you.